Greetings, awesome beings. How are we? Thank you for being here. Hello. Another interview tonight, another autodidactic chat. And we have a channel probably many of you have seen, Old World Florida. So he's sitting in the back. So without any more of ado, let us welcome Dr. Longo from Old World Florida. How are you? Welcome.
What's up, Campbell? Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for being here. Yeah, no, I've seen your channel popping up and been watching some of your videos. You're doing some really good work. I see you're getting good feedback and growing pretty quickly. So, yeah, no, well done. You're doing well.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, but 'cause I only got started 3 months ago, but a lot of the works, yeah.
Wow, man. Wow, you are doing well. Wow, nice. All right. So basically you're in Florida, and so your focus is Florida basically, and you've come across some pretty interesting information pretty quickly in your research that's not really being talked about a lot. We've had a lot of I don't know if you've seen the channels that America is Egypt, and there's a lot of that kind of stuff going around, but you've sort of found something a bit different that, well, at least Florida may have been. And of course, before we get going, a big shout out to everyone in Florida. Hope you're doing okay. Hope everyone's, got through the storm okay. Obviously, you've done all right. You're here, so that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's jump into it. I'll give you the floor. Tell us what you've found.
Basically, I think starting off, for people that don't, much of your audience might not be in America. For those that don't know, when America was started, a lot of us are taught in school that America, at least in the European narrative, when America was discovered, it was not Jamestown, Virginia, or Plymouth that were the first colonies or even the first settlements. The first settlement in America, European settlement, is actually St. Augustine, Florida. And for some reason, we're always given this this narrative that it was Plymouth or Jamestown because it was the English. Well, the Spanish were here in 1565. They founded St. Augustine. So Florida was discovered 1512, 1513 by Juan Ponce de Leon. Not discovered, but he first guy to land on it. They had drawn it before. But basically, within 50 years, they had a established colony. And I think you're going to see some of the buildings that come out of St. Augustine are pretty suspect, to say the least, especially when we find out that a majority of the city was made out of a early form of concrete that we don't know how to make today. So these buildings that were allegedly built in the 1880s were built in the they were probably built before that, but they say they were built in the 1880s, and they look brand new today. They hold up better than all the other buildings. I'm going to get to those. I have some pictures of those guys. But basically, if we want to zoom back a little bit, that's when the Spanish got here. And they found the Tamukua Indians.
Yep.
And the Tamukua Indians are pretty interesting. They went from South Florida up to South Carolina. And the French and the Spanish ran into them when they got here. But if we go back before that, the first interesting thing that really piques our interest in Florida is the bog bodies. We have the Florida bog people. And people have always thought about Florida being Atlantis or Bahamas being Atlantis, the Caribbean. Yeah. And this very much supports that idea because you have European. They don't like to call them European. They call them Eurasian.
Okay.
because they had orange hair. They're anatomically European, and they are actually the oldest human burial found in Florida, and they're 7,000 years old, 7 to 8,000 years old.
Okay. Well, and are they found in the bogs, in the marshes? Are they, or are these in mounds as well?
We're gonna be looking at some that were found from mounds, but these first two that I'm gonna share my screen now.
Yeah.
Is you got that?
Yep.
We're in. Cool.
Yeah, we got him.
So here are the bog bodies. Basically, this is the Minnesota Key site, 7 to 8,000 years old. That's their timeline, right? That's what the mainstream's telling us, 7 to 8,000 years old. And they're very reluctant to talk about these guys. And pretty much the reason why they can't run away from that 7,000-year-old timeline is because it's a couple hundred yards offshore. So
Yeah,
it's in the ocean.
What the
So
hell? Oh, they've got to go with water, what they say about water levels.
exactly. So
Yeah,
that tells us right there, those people were buried before that sea level change. So that places them pretty far back in the timeline. Now let's take a look at what they looked like. This is like a display in a museum. This is them finding them, little bone fragments out in the ocean. Ancient burial site is older than expected. And basically, yeah, stuff, burial sites get found all the time. But why these guys are special is because they have Eurasian DNA. And they pretty much swept this under the rug. No one talks about it now. But they had orange hair. And we're going to show you that.
So
right, yeah.
are they normal size or are they bigger?
Okay. So they say that the male average was 5'9",
Okay.
but many specimens above 6 feet tall. So that's pretty tall for ancient America.
Yeah.
But basically, we're gonna get to some giants, Campbell. Don't worry. I know you're foaming at the mouth for the giants. But so basically, this is experts are, they immediately started comparing these to the bog bodies of Europe. Let's take a look at those guys. And those guys all have orange hair too, even the ones in Europe. And if you know anything about Atlanteans and the Phoenicians and the sea people, you'll know that they're described as having red hair. And that's kind of their distinct quality of the Atlanteans. Now let's take a look at there. You can read a little bit about it. 7 to 8,000 years old. This is the Windover site. So this one wasn't in the ocean, but it's the same time period. It's the same exact type of burial. And you see, these were so well preserved that they thought it was a murder when they first found it, because the bodies were so well preserved. So think about that. People that we have trouble finding people that were killed in the Civil War. These guys were buried on purpose in a bog that has alkaline water. So when they were buried, basically, they were preserved forever until they got found. And they pulled them up and they had European DNA. And some of them had full brains in their skulls.
Wow. So it was like that was a way of almost mummifying them, like, or preserving them, was burying them in that.
Yes.
So it's like they were purposely put in the bog, not that they've sort of ended up there over time.
Now, these guys are not bog bodies. but I'm going to show you some of the giants. Basically, you find elongated skulls in Florida as well.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, nice. I haven't heard
So,
of them in North America at all.
so I'm going to share again. And
And I was going to say before, I mean, it makes sense that, Florida would be the first, landing place in the Americas because they tell us that's where, Mr. Columbus went, right? Was
right,
in the
Puerto Rico.
Caribbean, and yeah, exactly. He was right
Exactly.
there.
Yeah, we're going to go back to that, and we're going to look at the Gulf Stream and what role the Gulf Stream might have played in as far as people coming across the Atlantic, especially ancient people back then, in like the Ice Age, after the Ice Age. But can you see my screen?
I can.
So right here, this skull is not from Peru. This was found in the ground in Florida. This elongated skull, and this is not. They say that this is, man-made. What do they call it?
Like binding.
Yeah, skull binding. But
Yeah.
it's not skull binding. You can tell it's
Yeah.
not skull binding.
Yeah. Volume's too big.
Yeah, exactly. So this was found in the 1800s, and that was cataloged in this book, Certain Aboriginal Remains of the Northwest Florida Coast. And so they really couldn't get that one. That one was already in the record. But a couple years ago, or maybe it was I think it was like 2010 or something, this lady, they were building a pool, and they found multiple elongated skulls in a
Oh.
backyard underneath a pool. And basically what they said was they have to be Peruvian because they're elongated. This is how backwards science is today. They say,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
this is an
We only
elongated
find them in
skull.
Peru, so therefore, yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Go backwards, yeah.
And their whole reasoning on how this got here was that a Spaniard had taken a trophy from Peru, then got restationed in Florida and dropped his valuable skulls into the ground. And there you go.
Of course.
That's what they say. But those are the elongated skulls. Let's look at some giants, because we've got giants in Florida too. And those giant anchors that we're going to be getting to would have needed giants to be using them, unless it was advanced tech, of course. But basically, these are the Tamukua that the Europeans ran into when they got here. And just starting off, I've highlighted the interesting bits. They live for a long time, 300 years old. And
Wow.
his father was 50 years older than that. So 350 years old. And and basically he's saying we would live that. They told the Europeans they would live that long too if they ate better and didn't, drink so much. But then we see how tall they were. They exceeded our tallest man by 1.5 feet. And that was the Spaniard saying it.
So that'd put them about 7 foot at least, wouldn't it?
At least that would put them at 8 feet. He said that their tallest man was 6'3" or 6'4".
Oh wow, the Spaniards. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Right,
and
so
actually, we're gonna get to another part of this. What countries have the most orange hair? Ireland and Scotland, right?
Yeah.
Well, basically, did you know Columbus was led to America by a Irish man?
I heard that he acquired maps from someone. I don't know who that was, but
He
Irish.
had a navigator whose
Yeah.
name was William Harris, and on the ship's log, they named him Guillermo Harries, in Spanish. Isn't that funny?
Right. Yeah, of course.
But he was Irish, and he
Irish.
met Christopher Columbus, and he convinced Columbus he could bring him to a new landmass. And that's not even a conspiracy theory or anything. That's just fact. But you'll see there's some more connections with the Celts, because when the French and Spanish got here and met these people, the Tamukua, who were much taller than them, they compared them. They said they looked most like the Picts of Ireland and Scotland.
Okay.
That's pretty unusual, isn't it?
Yes, it's a fairly strange thing to say. Yeah, if they're supposed to be Indians, especially.
Yeah. So you see this, it says a thigh bone measuring 38 inches in length. Thigh are newspaper clippings from 1913.
Yeah, because I've got a few of those too. There was quite a few dug up, and of course there's Patagonia, South America, but there's a lot of giant talk right in the Americas. But I was going to say as well, the coneheads, like the elongated skulls, they have red hair too.
Right, they do. And the Peruvian ones too, right?
Yeah,
the Paracas,
but they're clearly a different species. Yeah.
So let's take a look at so we got a lot of giant bones in Florida. What we also get going back before we get to the anchors and stuff, this is the Gulf Stream, and I've watched your video on the dry Tortugas. You did Fort Jefferson. You did a really good video on Fort Jefferson.
Yeah.
Now, did you know the Gulf Stream, which is this current, anomalous, warm water current, it goes from literally right next to Fort Jefferson in the dry Tortugas. That's where it starts, and it goes up into Europe. And this is what like the Vikings and people would have been. It was like a warm water highway, basically, that you could travel to the Americas on. And this kept certain areas thawed out during the Ice Age, where if you were close to this, you would have been alive. So this was pretty much the only way to get across the Atlantic back then. Okay. But yeah, that terminates or starts in
and goes back to Scotland, where red-haired people.
So that brings us to star forts. Florida's got a lot of star forts. These are the most impressive ones. This one is the most impressive. Castillo de San Marco, which was built in between the 1670s and 1690s. That's Fort Caroline, right here.
Yeah, that's a cool one, that one.
Now, this one, you see the proportions are a little off. Not sure if that's on accident, but that was actually a big star fort on an island. It wasn't that small. Castillo de San Marco, built out right onto the water. And what's interesting is that they actually used this fort. And just look at how ancient it looks, even back then. They used the fort to imprison natives in. So it was like a holding pin for all the natives.
Of course.
There's St. Augustine, the Star City.
Is that the one that they said that the natives built? Or the slaves or something?
Yes. They used Indian slaves and black slaves. The Spanish did.
To build a really good fort to lock themselves up in, yet they never leave tunnels or escape routes or anything, do they? It's like, let's build the best jail we can so we can lock ourselves up.
But you have that going on. You got star forts. Now we should get into the anchors a little bit, because basically, if we've got giants, what are the giants up to?
Exactly, and we know the further back we go in time, the bigger well, everything seems to get, but definitely people, right? So
Yeah, it's almost like we're the domesticated version of something before. Like you have the domesticated cat, you have the domesticated.
yeah, like dogs, especially now, right? Now they're
Exactly.
like the size of a handbag. They used to
Yeah.
be wolves. Mm.
So here we have John Saxer. John Saxer lives in the Tampa Bay area, and he stumbled onto some stones, some anomalous rocks, and these stones all have perfect holes bored through them, and bored, like tooled, machined through
Yeah.
them. And
Is it so similar to what we see in Egypt?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And uh, stone anchors are found in the Mediterranean Sea most often. Now, those stone anchors are 300 pounds on average,
So
and
that's
those will
about
hold.
around just under 100 kilograms for anyone in
Right.
Australia.
Thank
Or
you. Yeah.
USA.
Thanks for converting. Let me find some of the small guys. Here we go. This is what stone anchors usually look like when they're found out in the Mediterranean Sea or off in Polynesia, Indonesia. And they were used for small boats in ancient times, 5,000 years ago and beyond. But the issue is that in Florida, we have the largest and the most in the world. So we have more stone anchors than anywhere else that have been found, and we have the largest stone anchors. And basically, this is John Saxer. He's the first person to put this together, to realize what they were. He had 10 years under his belt as an Egyptologist. So when he moved down to Florida, he had the knowledge to know, based off the patina on these rocks, how old they were. And that
Mm.
these weren't just sort of, cracked out of a limestone formation on the coast. These are ancient, and these were tooled.
Cool. Yeah.
So you see that one, that's a perfectly bored hole that
Mm.
goes about a foot into the rock, right on the rim, right on like the collar of the rock that you would have if you were tying a rope through it.
Yeah.
Now you see how large this one is? This is one of, if not the largest in the world. This is 10,000 pounds. The largest, maybe 15,000 pounds. There's a couple that tie for biggest with this one. Now, John right there, he's 5'9", 5'10". That's a 10-foot rock. It weighs
Mm.
10,000 pounds and has a hole perfectly bored through the center, as well as rope marks. Now, a lot of people say, oh, how could you use rope on that? Well, 10,000 pounds only needs 1 3/4 inch rope to hold.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. I suppose rope's pretty strong, isn't it? Because it's woven. Yeah.
Now, with this one with 2 holes bored in it, you can tell this is definitive proof that this was an anchor, because this is how they would pull their anchors out before, when they were stuck in the ground. You'd have 2 ropes, and you could shimmy the anchor by pulling each side and shake it out of where it's stuck. You see how large that one is. That one's also about 10,000 pounds, probably 8,000 maybe. Now this is the Atlas stone, as John calls it,
Yeah.
and this is out front of a restaurant, and they call it a Tamukuan religious stone because it has like a shrine on it, an altar, basically, with a female and a male face etched onto them. And yeah, 7,000 at least years old, and no one talks about this stuff.
Okay, so they're actually dated as well at that date, the same as
Yes.
the mummies, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Same time frame. Same
Mm.
time frame. You see this guy, and here's an up close picture of what this boring looks like. It's perfect circles. You don't get that from
Nature.
water. And the experts say that this is a pebble getting stuck in a little nook, and over thousands of years just getting washed around until it
Wow.
creates one. That's their desperate
How does it
attempt.
create the opening?
Exactly.
It
makes
creates
no
one and then it
sense.
decides to go back in and create the other side or something. It's like, come
But
on.
yeah. So
Wow.
those are the anchors, and I spent the last month I spent making a documentary with John Saxer about
Yes.
those stones, and it's doing pretty well. People are shocked because we're just not taught about that, especially in
Mm.
Florida. I grew up in Florida. We are not told that we have the largest and oldest and most stone anchors in the world.
Wow.
And
Bizarre.
well,
So, sorry, here you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
I was just, do the mainstream call them anchors? Like, are they?
So
Do the,
Bill Donato and a couple official, accredited archaeologists went over, and John's theories received a lot of attention in the 2000s. And he got some of these like History Channel and stuff to come over there, and not History Channel, but officials like that, scientists, archaeologists, come over and check them out. And they did check them out, and they did declare them as the largest stone anchors in the world. But they were never reported. No journal, no headlines, literally. And
tell me one.
yeah,
Yeah.
and those bog bodies from earlier, those are actually they're not allowed on display. They put one little like fragmented thing out on display, but they don't display them, they don't talk about them, and none of the skulls, the original skulls, are displayed, even though they're like 100% preserved.
So we don't know
So
if they are giants and elongated. Really, we've just got stories.
yeah. Well, they're
Yeah.
definitely not Native American, and that's a big thorn in their
Yeah.
side. So
Yeah. Is that? I mean, I don't know. Is that something you can tell by looking at a skeleton? I suppose some people could.
what the race is,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, it's very easy to do.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes, there are, especially the skull. That's the real telling, because your skull is determined by diet, and diet is determined by region, culture.
okay.
So
Interesting.
yeah, you can
Yeah.
tell at a glance. You can tell what race a skull is.
Wow. Geez, in the future they're going to be calling people McDonald's race. That's a McDonald's race, that one.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and I was thinking, like, because the whole stone thing, like, we've got this conception of, Atlantis being advanced, civilization, advanced tech, and obviously the question why stone anchors, but when we look back at it in the past as well, it was all stone, wasn't it? Like the further back we go, it gets to the place where it's just megalithic stone. There doesn't even seem to
Well,
be a line in those sort of buildings or walls.
so I'm an astrologer, and I always defer back to astrology, because I feel like if you know your astrology, you can never be confused or deceived, because
Yeah.
you'll know what all the symbols mean and why. And the best part about astrology is knowing the ages,
Yeah.
because that's the argument. Is people always say, oh, advanced technology, this, advanced that. Why aren't we finding computer chips in the ground? Why aren't we finding modern plumbing? Well, the issue would be, the remedy to that is that we just entered the age of Aquarius. So age of Aquarius rules digital technology, digital cyber, ethernet. That is the age of Aquarius. So you should not, it's foolish to expect to find that type of technology in a prior age. Now, Tartaria, bringing it back to Tartaria, we just left the age of Pisces.
Yes.
Now, Pisces is water,
Yes.
the ocean, hydropower. So we just left an age of water power. And Pisces also rules religion. So this also tells you what the method of control is going to be for that age. The age of Pisces rules religion. So for the last 2,000 years, all they didn't have to lift a finger. All they did was they ruled us with religion. And we did all the fighting ourselves. And you get the idea. Now, to bring it back to stone, past the age of Pisces, which is 2000 to 0, Jesus's age, the age of Jesus, right? Before that, from 2000 BC to 0, you have the age of Aries. Now, these are like the Persian Empire, the Greek Empire, and that was the age of war. So there wasn't a lot of tech going on. It was military tech. They were fighting, and it was fire technology. If they had any technology, it would have been fire-based. That would have been the prominent form of energy back then.
Yeah. Well, that makes Archimedes and all his stuff.
Exactly. And that's why in the age of Aries, there was not a single, of all the philosophers that lived in the age of Aries, there was not a single one that said anything about world peace. Because why would it? It's the age of Aries. It's the age of Aries. So why, who does it benefit? They don't, it wasn't a thing for them. Whereas the age of Pisces, where the word peace comes from Pisces, everyone's worried about world peace. Everyone wants world peace. And today it's Aquarius. And Aquarius rules knowledge, technology. So what are they ruling us with? They're going to rule us through technology. And in the age of Aries, why the age of Aries was so different was you had to go subdue enemies physically and through war. So everyone was a warrior. Every man was a warrior. That was your path to heaven. And it was a valid one. You'd go to heaven as a warrior.
Yeah.
But blah, blah, blah. Why is there only stone when you go a certain distance back in time? Like you said, is because past the age of Aries, from 4000 BC to 2000 BC, you have the age of Taurus. And Taurus rules stone, nature, fruit. These were like the matriarchal societies that their technology was very advanced, but it wasn't digital. It wasn't this. It wasn't.
It wasn't what we think technology is.
It was stone technology. It was earth technology, earth magic.
Yeah.
So that places that at pretty much the 6,000 year ago time.
So that is the whole megalithic, the massive stuff like we find in Russia and Ural Mountains. Yeah. So now that you've brought that up, I've got a question that I've been trying to find the answer to forever.
Sure.
These maps, we've still got the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the tropics of this age or the last age, are they?
Mm-hmm. Well, what it's about is that the Tropic of Cancer is summer. It's the middle of summer. It's the summer solstice. It's in Cancer.
Yeah.
So when the sun on the geocentric model, not the doesn't work on the globy model, but on the geocentric model, the sun follows like a magnet, follows that little track.
Yeah.
Like a train track, follows the Tropic of Cancer in the summer, and then follows the Tropic of Capricorn in the winter.
Yeah. But the tropics, like when you have the X in the sky, you have so we're in the age of Aquarius now, or almost. Okay. So the opposite on the cross to that is, I don't know what's the opposite to that.
Leo. Should
Leo.
be.
Leo. So that's an awesome sign. And then the cross is the tropics, I've been told. And so as we go through different ages, they should change.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I mean. So we'll still have the tropics, but they wouldn't be the Tropic of Capricorn or Cancer. They'd be of whatever, Libra and Pisces.
Yeah, I don't know precisely what you're talking about, but I do know that if you want evidence of the precession of the ages, all you need to do is look at the look east on the spring equinox, 6 o'clock in the morning, or sunrise in the morning, and you will have a different age, different constellation back behind the sun at that point in time. And right now we're on the cusp of Pisces and Aquarius. But basically, it's the age of Aquarius.
Man.
2012, the world ended. No.
Apparently, yeah. I thought it was 24th of September. Wasn't it just like last week?
Oh, I don't know. Did it end? Did it?
It was going to again. Yeah, nuclear war this time or something.
But that's also something that helps me out with timelines, is just knowing the astrology ages. Those are gonna hold true unless the planets and luminaries have sped up. If they've sped up, then who knows what timeline that is. But if they've remained constant, you can be sure that we're living in ages of 2000 roughly. And this is like who was it? Was it Plato or Ptolemy said the great year?
The
great year is like 25,000 ish, 25,000 years. That is basically the 24 and some change thousand years of the zodiac. 12 signs of the zodiac, 2,000 plus years in each. Yeah,
that's how the clock. Wow. So, all right. So, I was going to also touch on. There's another guy up in Florida, who's saying that he thinks Florida. I think it was back in the 60s. I think that Florida is the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm. The Christian guy.
Yeah.
His name's E. Calloway. He was like a lawyer and a preacher, and he was basically a Christian fanatic. But he was a good guy from all accounts. He was very didn't stand to profit much. He wrote a couple books about it, but and he actually got the area, Bristol, Florida. He got a portion of this state park named Garden of Eden Park, and there's all these signs up there advertising it. So they embraced it back then up there. But yeah, we can take a look at some of those.
Because one of his reasons was the trees,
exactly the gopher wood.
Gopher wood, which is what we're told the Ark was built from, and then we have these big stone anchors there, and something else we haven't mentioned is just offshore is, of course, the Bimini Road, and Bahamas, all that, and of course, there's been a lot of talk about pyramids and stuff being under the water there, and all types of stuff.
So in my Saxer Stones documentary, the guy that helped us find John Saxer, because I had to track him down, the guy that helped us find him actually worked on the AquaQuest, which was a expedition crew that went out to Bimini and the Bahamas and was looking for evidence of Atlantis. And they found pyramids. They found them. They dug on them. They went scuba diving down. And this is like the best footage of the Bimini Road. They went to the Bimini Road, and then they found pyramids off of Bimini as well. And they found a 300-foot cliff, man-made cliff, seawall off the Bahamas. And that footage, I don't have it right now, but it's in my Saxer Stones documentary.
Nice. And of course, the link for Old World Florida is in the description, guys. So make sure you go across, have a look, give him a subscribe. He's almost at 10,000, so we've got to get him to 10K. So, share his work around, because he's got some really good stuff there. Go forward.
So in Bristol, Florida, E. Calloway started studying the tree life in the area, and he found out that there's a tree called gopher wood that only grows in the Apalachicola River area, basically just west of Tallahassee, Florida. And along this river, the Appalachia, which is the apple of Eden, as he put together, is basically these trees. And this is not a gopher tree. There's not, I don't have any pictures of them, but basically it's one of the lightest woods in the planet. And in the Bible, the wood that Noah used to build his ark was called gopher wood.
Wow. So,
So
is it kind of like balsa wood a bit? Is it?
sorry,
Is it like balsa wood?
I don't know. I don't know much
What
about balsa
balsa
wood.
is? Okay, that's
No.
very, very light as well.
It's very light, and supposedly you can't snap it. Like it won't snap,
Okay.
it won't break.
Wow. Wow. Because
So it's
balsa wood
very, yeah, it's very weird. But
Yeah.
basically, he
Wow.
he got together with some uh, botanists. I don't know what the word is. People that know about trees, and he identified of the 30 or so trees in Eden, 27 or 37, I forget, around there. He identified almost all of them as being in this national park, state park in Florida. And the wood was mainly the thing that he was dead set on. Now, when we take his story with Noah's Ark being built in Florida, and I have a video on that. There's not many photos to go off of, but there's a video on my channel. Basically, he's saying that the wood for these arks was made in northwest Florida, in the Gulf of Mexico. John Saxer is saying that these stone anchors, these giant stone anchors, they are there in southwest Florida. So if you have southwest Florida with all these giant stone anchors, they needed ships to go with them, wouldn't they have? Right. So
Exactly.
this is probably where the ships would have been made. And in the mountains of Ararat, you have one of these stone anchors
Oh, really?
that is a little bit larger. That is sorry, is a little bit less large than the ones we have in Florida, but it's still on par.
Oh,
And
that's interesting.
I
I was
didn't
just
get
saying,
any
like,
I didn't
have they
get
found any
any.
boats anywhere or any remains? Because they apparently they found the remains of one in Mount Ararat.
Yeah, there's this. It's also good evidence of like petrified wood because they have the outline of this ship, of this giant
Mm,
ark, and it's stone now. So
stone.
it looks like a crashed ship, but it's rock now.
It's stone, but I mean, we know the whole,
Mhm.
fossilization thing is crap, right? I mean, you go to Mother Shipping's cave and you can hang a teddy bear up and it'll be a rock in 3 months or something. So,
Right, right.
it's
So
just minerals. Yeah.
so you've got that arc there, and then you've got the uh, stone anchors. They're actually ballast stones, so they would have been suspended under the ship on a rope.
Okay.
Because these big ships back then, they didn't have sails. So in order to keep them stuck to the water, they would have these big, heavy stones underneath the ship. So the ship's moving along, and underneath
So I
they
couldn't
have
tip
these.
over.
Exactly. It's like a counterbalance.
Hmm.
And they have those in Mount Ararat, basically.
Oh,
But there's only a handful. There's one really big one, and then there's a couple others scattered around it. And it looks as though a ship crashed onto the mountains after a flood and dropped its anchors, and the anchors are still standing there today because they're so big, no one could ever move them.
hmm.
So the Templars, when they went through the area, they actually marked their Templar cross on these anchors because they realized the significance of them.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Here, actually, let me download a picture of.
So nothing yet found in the Americas. I haven't heard of any giant ships.
No, that's really why Florida's strange is that you don't get any stone anchors on the east coast of America. You might have some of these in the east coast of Florida, but you don't find them on the west coast of America. You don't find them on the east coast of America. You only really
Mm.
find them down here in Florida.
So, I
Now,
mean, I wonder if those were anchors that weren't used. I mean, I'm
well,
just wondering why
that's
they're in Florida, because, yeah.
basically John Saxer and I believe Florida was the main seaport of Atlantis. That Tampa
Okay.
Bay is the primary seaport of Atlantis.
And
Can you
if they
see my
had the
screen?
wood, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this
And
is the one in Mount Ararat in Turkey or Armenia. And
yeah.
you see that one's about as big as the ones we see in Florida. And same exact style, except this one's not limestone. It's granite, so it may not have came from Florida, but it's certainly the same style as the ones in Florida.
Mm.
And you see the Templar crosses. The Templars etched the crosses
Oh,
onto it
yeah.
to mark it because they knew it was Noah's anchor. But yeah,
Wow,
so that's that guy. So we believe that Florida was like a dock, pretty much like a giant ancient docking ground, and it was a shipping port because it's some of the most fertile. It's one of the most fertile places in the world. You can grow tropical fruit, but you can also grow temperate vegetables and traditional agriculture here as well. So
and
we
you've got the
think
gopher wood.
exactly. So we think it was like a
Yeah.
trading center of
Mm.
commerce, and
Well, when you
that's
look at Florida, it's
yeah,
got the big, the big, what do they call it? The mullet of America, the big bit that goes
yeah,
off the bottom,
yeah.
and the keys in that. I mean, it almost looks like a massive kind of with a harbour, sort of in
Mhm.
there.
It's a
Um,
breakwater.
like, yeah.
It's a giant breakwater where the Atlantic coast of Florida has smooth seas, but they're kind of choppy,
Mm.
even for shallow water. When you go to the Gulf of Mexico, it's crystal flat. It's perfectly flat, 90% of the time.
Yeah.
So that would have been the inland sea of Atlantis that Plato describes. And
Yeah.
all of America, all of North and South America were the greater Atlantis. But Florida would have been the primary seaport because Tampa Bay is one of the only natural deep water harbors in the world.
Oh, okay. So it's deep as well. Okay.
Tampa Bay.
So okay,
So
and
in
that's
key in
that's sort of up behind the leggy bit.
exactly you go around the peninsula and then you're in the safe bay. So that would have
Yeah.
been the crystal sea that Plato talks about. And in Plato's description of Atlantis, you have a 100-foot deep seawall, or sorry, 100-foot wide seawall, or not seawall, canal that separates a seawall from the mainland. Florida has the intracoastal waterway that is a thin, natural, quote unquote, natural strip of ocean that separates the barrier islands from the mainland of Florida. And
Oh,
that canal goes from Texas to Maine, but
oh wow,
it's
right through there. Wow.
most clearly defined in Florida area, intracoastal waterway.
Okay, so the head, like the head city of Atlantis, may have been in the Caribbean Sea.
Yes, the Caribbean is high on the list as far as possible literal locations for Atlantis, and I'll tell
Mm.
you why. It's so fertile. So Paradise would have certainly needed tropical fruit, so you can grow tropical fruit here. But why Florida is so special is that Florida has the highest concentration of freshwater springs on the planet.
Really?
So we've been taught that Florida is just like this mucky swamp, right? That is not the
Yeah, yeah.
case.
Yeah. I
That's
thought it was just
not the
beach
case at all.
and swamp behind it.
No. Here,
And
let's take.
so, what do they do with the gopher wood? Like, are they like? I'm just, well, they don't use it. Obviously, they're not farming. I've never heard of it. Like being you would think if it's this good, does it still grow a lot, or is it like
It's
contained,
it's
or
it's still confined to this small area in Northwest Florida, and it
okay.
goes. I think it goes up into Georgia a little bit, but it's not. I don't think it grows anywhere else, and I don't
Wow.
know. I'll be honest. I don't know much
Yeah.
about. I'm not a wood guy, but
No. I mean, if it was that good, they wouldn't let us have it anyway, would they? So.
exactly. But we do have giant trees in Florida. Some of the
Oh,
uh, second
really?
second to second to California. So California has the redwoods and the sequoias. Florida has the bald cypress, which are cousins of the sequoia and the redwoods. Just a,
Okay, yeah, because the cypress, they always, talk about the cypress in the Middle East, don't they?
exactly, cypress in the Middle East. There's a lot of linguistic, phonetic synchronicities between Florida and the Middle East. But can you
Yeah.
can you see my screen again?
Hang on, just share. Thank you, CJDV, for your donation. Is there a Disneyland in Florida? Is it Disney World? It was Disneyland in Florida, is it?
I think it's Disney World is the one in
Disney
Florida.
World.
I
That's
could
the
be wrong.
second one. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, no, Disney World's Orlando.
So, yeah, Orlando, Florida. Yeah. So, I wonder if that's. Have you looked into that at all? Because I mean, there's
I
talk about
have, yeah.
the castles and everything, and what is that place?
Basically, and he's right near the springs too, some of the spring water. But yeah, I want to show you some springs before I get
All right. Yep.
sidetracked.
Cool.
Because this ties into oh wait, I'm just gonna show you here. You can see my screen?
Yep.
So these
Oh,
are
wow.
Florida springs. The entire inland of Florida, starting from Central Florida up into the Panhandle, is covered with crystal clear, turquoise, glowing spring water. This is 100% pure,
That,
fresh spring water, fresh water, crystal clear, and it actually glows because it has lime in the water. There's flakes of lime, which is essentially like flaky quartz,
yeah.
and it causes the water to glow this glowing turquoise. And
Wow. That's
Florida
nice.
has the highest concentration of freshwater springs in the world. So why did the Spanish come here? It was for the fountain of youth, wasn't it? That's what we're
Yeah.
told. Because there was
Yes.
there was no there was no gold in Florida, zero. All the other Spanish colonies had tons and tons of gold. Florida had no gold, but they were here for 300 years. Why? For the fountain of youth. This is the fountain of youth. Florida spring water is the fountain of youth. And
So
yeah.
the people live longer who swim in that water and drink it and stuff.
Well, that's why all the old people moved down here. I don't know if you know that, but
We're just told that they moved down for the sun, right? So they can get an apartment and
yeah.
look at the water.
Well, Ed Leeds Scownon, the guy that built the
Yeah.
Coral Castle, he moved across the planet from Estonia, or maybe, sorry, Latvia. I think he was Latvian.
Yeah.
He moved and he searched America for the perfect place to build his castle, and he came down to South Florida, and he was sick, and he wanted to come and get healed. Now, Ford, Edison, Rockefeller, Firestone, the guy that makes the tires, Firestone
Yeah.
tires, Curtis, Glenn Curtis, the inventor of this guy's very interesting. You're gonna like remind me about Glenn Curtis and how he ties into star forts. But
Okay.
basically,
Yeah.
all those titans of industry, those tycoons, robber barons, they all moved down to Florida at the end of their life, and they kind of pioneered the whole moving to Florida thing when you get old. And
Wow.
Ford actually came down to Florida to heal himself, and he went and he stayed and met with this Concave inner Earth cult that was
What?
in the early 1900s. They're called the Coruscant Unity cult. They were in Florida. They had this inner Earth society that believed in an inner Earth and that the Earth was like concave. And Ford, who went on a robber baron road trip around Florida with Harvey Firestone and Thomas Edison. So Ford, Edison, nobody knows this. Nobody knows that Thomas Edison, Ford, and Harvey Firestone went on a road trip together in Model T Fords around America, and they spent most of their time in Florida. Thomas Edison and Ford bought a house together in Florida that was back to back. So it was a duplex. They were the sharing property, and they lived back to back. They were that close. They were butt buddies.
Are you trying to insinuate something here?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, we know what those types get up to, right?
But they went to this cult, and Ford wanted to get his basically. Here, I'll just pull up some pictures of this cult. Ford and Edison both hung out with them and like bought some of their literature and were very interested in this stuff that they were doing. And basically, this is their model of the world. I don't believe this at all. I think they were thinking in the right direction as far as it not being what we think it is, but this is their model of the
So we're on
universe.
the inside of a globe.
That's what they were big believers in the inner Earth. And so here we go. The Coruscant Unity, communal utopia formed by Cyrus Teed, who took the name Koresh from Persian name Cyrus.
Koresh.
He claimed to be the new messiah of the world. They started in other states but ended up in Florida. They were celibate. That's why they died out. And they were celibate in the pursuit of
That's a bit silly.
Of attaining immortality.
Okay.
And their ruling court was called the planetary court of this exclusively female, like, council of oracles. I don't know.
Wow.
But they believed in a hollow earth, and he invented a device that proves the hollow earth. I'm not buying it yet, but so those are the Coruscant. Yeah.
Koresh. David was David Koresh, wasn't it? That cult.
I don't know.
The Davidians, was it?
I don't know.
What was it called? Probably before your time, you young whippersnapper. But back, I think it was, I don't know, 20 years ago. And the US government went in and burnt the building all these people were in.
Is that
Waco?
I don't know that guy's name.
Yeah. Waco. He was David Koresh. I don't know if I spelled it, but and he was a cult leader. So I don't know, interesting time for you. So that was the Waco event. Yeah, the Branch Davidians. Yeah.
Let me try and find this guy's name. Whatever.
You can find it. It's spelled the same way. If you put in just WACO, it should pop up. While you're looking for that, I'll say hello. We've got
David Koresh. Yes, David Koresh. You're right. Whoa.
There you go.
He also claimed to be a prophet. That's crazy. And he's like 50 years after.
Yeah, maybe they didn't die out. Right?
Good. Thanks, Cambell.
No,
I didn't know that. Good info. That's a crazy connection.
Isn't it?
But I think it's kind of like a Persian name for Christ too, like
Ah,
Like Cyrus was Kyrus or something.
yeah, okay. So
Chris,
yeah, he could have
Crystal.
taken it
But
from there. Yeah.
let's how much have you looked at St. Augustine, Florida?
Yeah, no, not, I don't think I've looked at Florida at all. I've done the star forts and I've sort of done around, like Cuba and that, but I don't think I've actually got into Florida or any. So yeah, let's do it.
Let's take a little look at this is going to be more Tartarian stuff. Let's take
Yeah,
a look
yeah,
at
let's do it.
St. Augustine, because this is the first American city, and it's actually nicknamed Ancient City.
No, okay.
That
So it's
is,
very similar to the Australian story. We get, like 1788, and then
mhm.
but definitely within 50 years, we've got complete built out cities. It's just mad.
Exactly. In 1820, there was really not much in Florida other than the port cities that were on these major ports. There was really not much going on in inland Florida. But as we're going to get to, I'm going to talk about Key West too. In 1820, and this is on the Wikipedia and like historical information for Key West, Florida, which is like this Bay of Pirates type area.
Oh, yeah.
Um, in 1820, there was not a single permanent resident in all of the Florida Keys. By 1830, it was the richest city in America.
Dude, you guys are stealing the script from Melbourne. And thank you, Abby Oz. Thank you very much. Melbourne is that what they say? I mean, it's not that quick, but I think they say um, it was founded 1829, and by 1860, it was the richest city in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But sorry.
And also, there was no way to get to Key West. You could only get there by boat. So,
what are they saying? It was just like fishermen, like people who sort of
it was
went, no one lived
shipwreckers.
there permanently, sort of. Just shipwrecked people. Just people wandering around
Shipwrecking,
looking for food.
shipwrecking, treasure diving, and like just outright
And pirates, yeah, because
piracy.
the whole pirate thing in Port Royal's just
Yeah.
there, isn't it?
And you did a great video on the White Fleet, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did you know that the White Fleet, it wasn't the same White Fleet, but it was Commodore Perry and Commodore Porter,
Yep.
who were in the Barbary Wars, which is where America established like ocean dominance, like naval dominance.
Yep.
They beat the North African Berbers, the Barbary Wars, and the Barbars are the Tartars.
Yeah.
Barber to the west, Tartar to the east. That's what I
Yeah.
always say.
Yeah.
It's just a Roman perspective. That's why you have black barbarians in Africa and you have German barbarians up north, because they're the enemies of the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
That's where they get their name. And they have the beards. Follow the beards, because the Atlantis barbers, yeah. But
barbers. Oh, is that where we get barber from? Yeah, well, it probably is.
so let's take a little stop. Let's go to Key West first, because I was talking about Key West.
Key West.
Commodore Perry and Commodore Porter, basically, they did the White Fleet. I don't think it was the same fleet, but they did the exact same tactic to Key West, where they had just bought Florida or got Florida back from Spain. And Key West was supposedly like this lawless pirate den, but it was also the richest city in America. So I guess these pirates were paying all their taxes because or maybe they weren't paying their taxes, and they sent the Navy to Key West in the 1820s, I believe, 1830s, and they enacted martial law in Key West, and it was military rule for like 5 years, and he was labeled even in the Wikipedia as a ruthless dictator. Commodore Porter, or maybe it was
Wow.
Commodore Perry. They came right after the other.
Yeah.
And basically they were sent to beat piracy. But what happened was they go from the Barber Wars, fighting the pirates in North Africa. As soon as the Barbary Wars stop, they come over to South Florida. And at the same time, we have the Seminole Wars. And the Seminoles of Florida.
That's the native tribe, wasn't it?
That's one of them. They are not.
They're the very Berber looking. If you look at the clothes of
Exactly.
Berber, it's very what we
Here,
also term sort of gypsy, isn't it? Same kind of stuff.
they are North African. I can almost be certain of it. And kind of the way they get rid of all of this is they say it's kind of like Australia, how they say, oh, it was all just they were all prisoners. There were so many prisoners, that's why they didn't keep track of anything, because it was all just prisoners. And fast forward 50 years and you get these glorious cities, right? Well, in Florida, they say it's runaway slaves. All the runaway slaves were running away to Florida. And that's why you have like 50 different ethnic groups in Florida. It's crazy. But
That's crazy. Thank you, Dragonfly. Thank you very much. It's sounding a lot like Australian history, but we have the convicts, right?
yeah.
And the bush rangers. We have these bush rangers, which are all these, apparently convicts that had gone bad, right? And they were sending troops out around the country, basically killing them all, right? All these people, but it's like, is that the real story, or were those people already here, right? Because we know there was something going on. There's buildings here, and it seems like the same thing, right? They're just going down and getting rid of what's left of the native populations.
And you're exactly right, because Florida, the Seminoles are not from Florida. The Seminoles were originally allegedly from Oklahoma, and they got pushed down. Kind of, it was like the same period as like the Trail of Tears and all that stuff when they were moving all the natives. And the Seminoles took refuge down in Florida because the Spanish were nicer to the natives and nicer to the black people and the runaway slaves compared to the English. You see this guy, right? You see these guys? Those are Native Americans, we're told.
Wow. So they're Seminoles.
Those are Seminole Indians.
No way.
And if you look at Seminole,
God, they actually do look Indian. They look Pakistani or something, don't they?
exactly, they look Eurasian, if not African, North African.
Yeah,
Berber.
it could be North Africa, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, but you also see some of the ones that could be runaway slaves, like these guys. You see that?
Yep.
Some of them look like they're more like Chilean, like from Argentina or something. But I'm going to show you when we start looking at the chiefs. You're going to see just how strange these guys are. This guy looks Asian.
Oh, wow. Doesn't he? He's even got that Asian moustache going.
See this guy. They look like they're Naruto. Here, let me look up.
So, I mean, yeah. What do you think? Do you think that these were people that were already in the Americas living, and they were offshoots of the Berbers, or is this like, are these the Atlanteans? And when some landed in America, some landed in North Africa or something. What's your take on who are they? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to figure this out. Here we have a better example. To answer your question, I think they're Moors.
Yeah, yeah.
They're from Lemuria. These are
Moria,
dark-skinned
yeah,
people
yeah.
that don't really belong in America, from what we're told. I'm trying to get
So
some good
they're kind
pictures
of
of these
like, yeah,
guys.
like the survivors, yeah, survivors from a
Here,
cataclysm, pretty
yes. Sorry, I'll sort that out later. But
much.
basically, in 1492, Spain was controlled by the Moors, or at least it was about to be retaken by the Spanish in 1492. So the Spanish kicked out the Moors. A week later, or 2 weeks later, literally in a matter of days, Columbus takes an army west to an unknown landmass, right? I believe he was chasing the Moors, that the Moors
Ah,
were retreating Spain. So some of them went back to Morocco, but some of them, I believe, came over to the Caribbean, where they may have been escaping to, or they were retreating to, where they already had establishments here. And then
hmm.
once the Spanish and the Catholic crown dealt with them in Spain and Morocco, they geared up, they got on their ships, and then they went over to America. And they started, that's why they were genociding everyone when they got here, you know?
Mm. I mean, that's what this whole thing looks like to me is, this whole takeover. It looks like some kind of war, like, yeah, that we obviously lost, right? Or we're the victims of somewhere. But, we get this story of, oh, no, it's just, exploration and, God, every land was just, only natives there, right? But clearly something else is going on. It's like they were just going around, yeah, chasing their enemies and wiping them out and taking their cities and then
Yeah.
turning them into slaves, right?
Yeah.
Like happened all throughout history.
Everyone that resisted was pretty much labeled a pirate. That's kind of
And the
what it's.
whole pirate thing, and that's perfect, right? Because then they just, call you a pirate. Then they just outlaw pirates and say they all should be killed, and they just wipe them out, and it's all legal. Well,
Yes,
kind of.
you're right.
But
So
that's exactly what they did in Australia with bushrangers. They just labeled someone a bushranger, and it was open.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly, and you have all that Irish and Celtic. It's almost like that was the initial ethnic cleansing, was that they were cleansing all the Irish out of the British Isles, and they were, oh, you're a prisoner, you committed crimes, and they kicked all the Irish out to Australia.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then you
yeah,
create this cycle where now the Irish are all in Australia and they have to replace another population, you know.
yeah,
So
right. That
so
makes a lot.
sorry I was staring at my screen, but I just got some good photos that you're gonna want to see
All right.
of the Seminoles.
Oh, cool. All right.
So these are Native Americans. You saw that guy. This right here is a Native American.
Nice metal sword he's got there too.
Yep.
I will see those,
This
those dudes are clearly Americans because they got frilly bits on their pants.
These are Native Americans.
No way.
Here's another Native American.
And see, this is why they do movies like Dances with Wolves and promote the crap out of them, right? And everyone thinks, they have this picture that's all Indians were the same. And I mean, yeah, they don't look like the Indians I've been sort of shown in movies
No,
and all this other stuff you see.
basically, what I believe, the Plains Indians, who are kind of the most famous when people think of American Indian, they think
Yeah,
of, or Native American, they think of the Plains Indians that
the
have the
TP, the
bow
horse.
and
Yeah,
arrow on a horse, right?
yeah,
Well, we also know that most North American native DNA came across the Bering Strait from Asia. That's what we're told.
yeah.
Well, I believe that the majority of northern Native Americans are not Native Americans. They're partially Native American. They're actually a Mongolian horde. They are part of
Oh,
an Asian and Asiatic invading force that cut all the way across America, but was restricted to the northern part. And I have some maps of like Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon, the Mormon religion, the Mormon religion.
more man.
The Mormons go into how America, not all of the Old Testament, and it wasn't just America, but much of the Old Testament took place in America, and
Yeah,
they actually have all these races like bloodlines mapped out through America, and Florida is one of these ancient kingdoms, biblical kingdoms.
I might have to read that again. So this is the thing. That's one of those books I used to just say, "This is what the hell are they on about?" But now it's actually like, hang on, what are these? What are these guys onto? They've got some info there, and,
I
and of
mean,
course that's why they're sort of shunned, as a religion and laughed at
exactly.
it. Yeah,
It's like Christianity gets all the license to be as ridiculous as they want to be, and no one bats an eye
yeah, man.
at that. But then when the
Then
Mormons,
yeah.
when the Mormons believe in Tartaria, they essentially believe in Tartaria.
Yeah, right.
And
That's a good way to look at it. But they've also got the book, right? The gold plates and stuff. They've actually got some artifacts. I mean, I don't think the Christians have got any artifacts, do they?
and
Apart from out of
no,
Turin.
their salt in Salt Lake City, that temple they have is ancient.
Underground, man. Yeah, it's what is it?
And
20 foot underground.
yeah, it's
Built.
ridiculous.
And what do they say? Like literally, they say that was the first thing they built when they turned up in wagons,
Yeah,
with nothing after,
exactly.
God knows how long.
It was like
But
starving old men and children building it.
Yeah. And you
And
wouldn't
they
build farms and food first. You'd build a temple out of brick.
and they had just had, people don't talk about the Mormon Wars. The Mormons were in an open conflict with the United States military. And
Oh,
and they got
Satan.
they massacred, supposedly, who knows if it was like a Pearl Harbor thing, like, oh, you did this, now we do this. But basically the Mormons supposedly massacred like a train of travelers, traders, and then the government was like, hey, you just massacred these people, now we're going to massacre you. And there was a battle, and then they escaped to Salt Lake City. They escaped.
Ah,
Originally they were over on the east coast of America.
yeah,
But
right.
so let's
So
take a little, sorry.
yeah, but the Mormons are supposed to, like, it was John Smith, right? He's supposed to be from Europe, right? He went there looking for it. Is that the story, or was he from America? I can't remember.
I don't know. I think he was
You don't know
American.
either.
I
Yeah,
don't
okay.
know. It's out of my jurisdiction.
Because again, that's sounding very much like that. Literally, could be part of the old world. Yeah.
But with the Seminoles, I have a lot of Seminole subscribers because I did videos on the Seminoles, and no one goes into this history. I have a lot of Seminole subscribers that tell me all this etymology. The Seminoles come from the Creek and the Muskogee. And we have a St. Petersburg, Florida. There's also a St. Petersburg, Russia.
Yeah.
And in Florida, we have Muscovy ducks. Muscovy is a region in Russia.
Moscow. Yeah,
Moscow,
yeah.
exactly. Now, the Muskogee tribe might be the Muscovies from Russia. And the Creek Indians, the Creeks are the Greeks. They may be the Greeks. And Haiti, which is just south of Florida, is Hades. So there's all this mythology.
Yeah, right.
And
There's even a Melbourne in Florida, isn't there?
what? What do you say?
There's a Melbourne in Florida. Oh,
Melbourne. There's a Melbourne. Yeah.
Say it differently. Yeah, Melbourne.
Melbourne.
Melbourne. Yeah, that's interesting too. Wow. So
So
yeah, wow, okay. So I mean, it's almost like there was multiple like little sort of factions or little sort of habitations for all these different people that
what's crazy is that the Creek and the Muskogee, they were renamed Seminoles. So
like
Seminole is not their original name, but the Creek and the Muskogee and the Mikazuki got clumped up into the Seminoles
into the
because
to hide the name, obviously.
to hide the name. Now Seminole, some of my Seminole followers point all of that out to me, by the way. That Seminole comes from Semitic,
Ah,
like from the Middle East.
yeah, yeah,
Seminole.
yeah.
Like if you're Creole, it's like you're Haitian in French. If you're a Seminole, you may be from Semitic. You might be from
Mm.
North
So
Africa.
what do they say? What do the Seminoles say? Is that what they believe that they?
Yes, they're not from. They believe that they are not from America. That they
Not
are.
Native
Some of
America.
them say that they're native dark-skinned people to America, and that's completely possible too. But with Columbus, just at the drop of a hat, dashing across the Atlantic and
Mm.
landing in Puerto Rico, which is all these native people got genocided after that.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. They
It
got just
seems it
badly.
seems if you look at it on paper, they kick out the Moors, and then 2 weeks later, Columbus leaves to America. It looks like they were continuing that battle, that they finished the part on one side of the Atlantic, but there was still a war to be fought on
They
this
just
side.
chased it, and
And they didn't start our American timeline until that war had been completed, basically.
yeah, okay, yeah, because I had to start from a blank slate.
Yeah. So let's
And so, yeah, yeah.
sorry.
Great thing. I was just going to say, do you think the Civil War is like a role, like a continuation of
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
cleanup?
So that's something that's a good topic because in Florida, Florida was kind of a safe haven for slaves, African
Yeah,
Americans, blacks, whatever you want to call them before. And they were all kind of concentrated in Florida, especially St. Augustine. St. Augustine was like majority black for a large part of its history. And that's because the Spanish weren't as mean to the black people. That's what we're
yeah.
told, that they were more tolerant. So all the African, and remember, I don't even know what to call them because they may not be African. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
they're
So
probably
so
Lemurian or something. Yeah, yeah, or
so
Moorish or
exactly. So black is kind of the best I can do. Moorish, they were allowed to live in Florida, whereas other states, especially Georgia, they were not allowed. So they were all trying to make it down to Florida. So we're told that the Seminoles, those guys, have a lot of runaway slave. Runaway slave. The word Seminole actually means runaway in their language.
oh,
So blah blah blah. Let's take a look
and
at St. Augustine.
yes, let's do that because it was the South, wasn't it, that had the slave
It
plantation.
was it was the South, but something interesting is that the largest plantation in Florida, the Kingsley plantation, was actually ran by an African princess.
Really?
So
Wow.
a lot of people don't like to talk about how it
No,
wasn't so
well,
it wasn't so
yeah,
black and white.
no. There's a
Um,
new movie that's just come out that I don't know if I can even mention it, but yeah, that whole controversy sort of about to hit the mainstream. I think.
yeah, because this African princess ran. Her white husband died, and she continued
Mm,
running this old plantation.
yeah, yeah. And now we know
So,
that that
sorry.
in Africa that yeah, it was women who were selling their own people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't didn't know that. That's gonna
It's,
ruffle some feathers.
it's going to, yeah. They just made a movie about it, but of course they sort of changed it. But everyone's coming out going, hang on, that's not the right story.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
I can, yes.
Okay, so all of these pictures are in St. Augustine, Florida, which was founded in 1565 by the Spanish, making it the first European settlement in North America. Sorry, in the United States, because they were in Puerto Rico already, but in the contiguous United States. So not Jamestown, not Plymouth. We're so brainwashed with that. It's like Columbus, and then fast forward to Plymouth Rock and the
Plymouth
Pilgrims.
Rock, yeah. And where's that? If that's up, where
That's
is Plymouth?
north. That's up. Plymouth is
East Coast.
Massachusetts, so
Okay.
northeast.
All right.
Virginia's not northeast, but east coast. So we're in St. Augustine, and these buildings, all the buildings for the most part that you're going to see, were built out of an experimental, revolutionary, poured concrete technique. Now, this poured
Okay. Really?
concrete is actually had a shell mixed in with it, crushed up shell and limestone. So this is like synthetic. They call
Yeah,
it
polymer. Yeah, polymer.
exactly. It's a polymer. It's concrete, cement. People think geopolymer would be something
No,
fancy.
do you watch Paul Cook?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Paul Cook. He does great stuff.
Wow.
I think you have a example of a complete surviving city of this.
And the whole thing looks like it's poured, basically.
It was poured, and these buildings, everything I'm going to be saying is truthful, is a fact. It's like from Wikipedia. Like there's no.
Well, that's definitely a fact then.
I'll tell you when we deviate from the mainstream. Yeah, because this was supposedly built in all of the buildings you're going to see built between 1883 and 1890 in Florida.
7 years.
Yep.
7.
Well, now one of those is built. So I should have said 1887 to 1889 is when most of these. Henry Flagler, who was John D. Rockefeller's business partner. Some might even say that Flagler was Rockefeller's boss. He was Rockefeller's partner in Standard Oil. They opened it together.
Yeah.
Now, everyone knows Rockefeller's name. No one knows Flagler's name. So,
good point.
So this is the Ponce de Leon Hotel, allegedly created by Flagler. And this is made out of poured concrete. So if you go on Wikipedia, it'll tell you this building is technically monolithic. It is one complete pour of concrete.
What?
And all this is Hotel Cordova, which is directly across the street. You're going to see them all together in a little bit. That is also made from pure poured concrete. That is a solid building, 100% monolithic.
Can you imagine the formwork involved in doing that?
Exactly.
Oh my God.
This is the inside of the Ponce de Leon Hotel. That's the ceiling, the gold leaf painted onto these goddesses and angels and stuff. And he's got the 12 signs of the zodiac up on the ceiling as well, which is a giveaway that he's an astrologer and a occultist.
Yep.
I'm a Sagittarius, by the way. Cambell's a Leo.
I am.
Total Leo. Center of attention.
Come on. What else would we got?
And this is some of the terracotta trim. That is fake brick. It's all poured concrete.
I was going to say, what is there? Is that like a facade, like a covering, or is that part of the? So that's been put on after.
It's terracotta. It's original, but it's terracotta.
But it's just tiles, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is today the fountain. The fountain in the middle is actually a sundial, and the 12 frogs.
Oh, yeah.
The 12 frogs tell the hour of the day and the month of the year, and the four turtles represent the 4 seasons.
Cool.
So this is the Hotel Ponce de Leon from afar. Now you see the Antiquitech on top of those towers. We're going to get a better look at those in a little bit. But that smokestack in the back, see that silo?
Yeah.
That was built by Thomas Edison because Edison wired the electricity for this hotel before it was open.
Of course he did.
This is one of the first hotels in the world that had electricity when it was built.
Nice.
And it used, and I quote, steam heat energy to power DC dynamos, direct current dynamos, that Edison had provided.
Wow. Okay. That
So
sounds like.
also,
Wow.
there it is. Look at this, how they're tiling. They're putting the tile of the brick tile of the
The cobblestoney sort of, paving.
Look at it. But it's going on top of wood.
On wood.
So what
I saw that in that last picture you showed. See in the foreground, it looks like that road's raised. See how one side it looks like it's.
Yeah.
Do you know what viaducts are?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good point. Now I can tell you those two towers of the Ponce de Leon Hotel. One tower held cold water. The other tower held the hot water.
No.
And that is how they were able to power this internal electricity system. And that's a fact. That's no conspiracy theory.
Yeah, that's in Wigan. Okay, so that's sounding like literally like that's a machine.
Yeah.
Like both of them combined are a big wow.
So this is a picture from the Ponce de Leon Hotel, and in the center there you see the Hotel Alcazar, which was also built by Flagler between 1887 and 1888. And then the Hotel Cordova is to the left there behind the building. That was also built by Henry Flagler and his friend Franklin W. Smith. Franklin W. Smith actually invented the concrete technique, and he only worked with Flagler. So Flagler built these buildings, and then Smith died, and no one has ever replicated this concrete cement technique.
Nice.
This is Presbyterian Memorial Church, and this was built by Flagler out of poured concrete. So all these buildings are 100% monolithic.
Wow.
Meaning they're solid.
Does that mean all buildings are poured and all we're looking at is facading?
Well, what is a castle? A castle
is
a cast. It's right in the words. So these are castles in the truest sense of the word.
They're cast.
A castle is not erected; it's cast.
Because that would just answer a lot of questions, wouldn't it? Like if everything was poured, I mean,
yeah.
Once they get the technique down, they could do it quick. They could do intricate shapes. Wow. Okay.
So this is Villa Zoreda. This was the home of Franklin W. Smith, the guy that invented quote unquote technique.
Yeah.
And he built a Moorish palace. Now the Star Fort is the same rock, but it's the actual rock. So it's blocks of coquina. Coquina is the limestone that's found. Yeah. Now, the mix that they were using in these hotels is coquina mix. So they're using the crushed up shell and they're recasting it. It's like man-made limestone. It is man-made limestone.
Okay. Did you see? I did a talk with Paul on Wednesday, Paul Cook, and he literally said that in Malta it looks like the Star Forts are cast with polymer, and then people have come along and taken bits out of it, crushed them up, and made bricks out of them. But you're saying they've just crushed it up and poured it. Mm-hmm. So they're basically reusing Star Forts and all these old sort of megalithic blocks. They're just crushing them up and reusing them.
Yes. Now, the craziest part is that Smith actually learned this technique from the Native Americans.
Of course.
Now,
because there were so many poured brick castles. Well, of course they do, but we're not supposed to know that, right?
Now, Florida is littered with shell middens, which are piles of shells that they call them trash piles because they don't know what
Oh,
they were for. They're just
okay.
like discarded piles of shell. Well, if you
Yeah.
know this stuff and you know that one of the names for this, it's called Kakina mix, but one of the names for it is Indian tabby. That's
Okay.
what
I've
they
heard
call
that.
it, the Indian form and it's a primitive concrete, and they were making this thousands of years ago, the native Floridians. So
Wow.
this very well could be their buildings,
Well,
or
I
Flagler
mean,
stole their technique and busted
but I
up.
mean, yeah. Do we reckon he could build all that in 2 years? I mean, he'd be
He
putting in
built
a few
all this.
days, man.
Yeah,
I mean, just look at that room, right? 2 years just to build that room. I mean, you'd be pushing it, wouldn't you? If it was a brand
yeah,
new technology you'd never used before, you're out somewhere where there's no, hardly any access, not many people to do the building. I mean, it's a big ask.
yeah. And this is supposedly a intentional swimming pool, and this was the
That's the coolest
largest.
pool ever, man.
This
No,
is At the time, this was the largest indoor swimming pool in the world.
wow.
So pretty nuts, right?
So again, I mean that looks like water tech, right? Some kind of cistern, maybe. That's just a
Exactly.
water holding tank, not an actual pool for swimming.
This is it today. It's
Oh,
drained and it's a cafe now.
okay. No more bombings off
So
the second balcony.
so this is ancient city church. Flagler let them build this for free. This church on his land, right next to these are all walking distance from each other, like the shortest walk ever. You could walk from one of these to the next. I have a video of me walking around St. Augustine. This
Okay.
was built right next to Flagler's church, but Flagler told them you cannot have a bell. I will let you build it for free, but you cannot have a bell in this church. Now, isn't that kind of strange?
It is.
Here's another shot of St. Augustine. I mean, that looks ancient. If you told me that's Jerusalem, I would believe you.
Yeah, well, look at those buildings. I mean, God. And is that a pile of cannonballs? Or was that pile of?
It is. It is a
It
pile of
is.
cannonballs.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I suppose that's pirates, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
look at this full electrical wiring in
What year is
18
this? Yeah.
late 1890s, early
Wow.
1900s.
Okay.
It's all horse and buggy. There's no cars.
And so is that whole system supposed to be running off what Edison built, the gas steam,
No, no. Edison built he
just
did
for that?
Flagler's buildings. He
Yeah.
did the Ponce de Leon Hotel. But no, I don't know about the wiring system, but they
Not
did
sure.
have trolleys. St. Augustine
And,
had a trolley system too.
everyone had a
So
trolley system.
here's the old city gate. And when you look at the top, you see very small bricks. When you look down at the bottom,
Yeah.
you see very large bricks. Look at how large those stones are at the bottom.
Yeah. I mean,
So that's Villa Zoreda. This is the Hotel Alcazar today, and it looks brand new.
doesn't
Like
it?
they do not age at all. It's insane.
So is that poured, that one?
This is also poured. All the
Poured? Yeah.
buildings I'm showing you are poured,
All poured.
with
Wow.
the exception of the one that looks like an ice cream cone. That one's yellow brick.
Okay.
There's the Ponce de Leon today. So here we go.
Okay.
This is the roof of the Ponce de Leon Hotel. And a lot of times people will see Antiquitech and they'll say, "Oh, no, that's just the what do they call it? The compass thing,
Oh, they're like the wind weather vane or
exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
The I don't know, the
the rooster.
compass thing. Yeah.
The rooster.
Yeah. And they'll say, "Oh no, it's just a thing that points the directions."
Yeah.
No. Here we have an up close photo from the late 1800s, early 1900s. Clearly, that is an apparatus. That is an electronic apparatus of some sort.
Yeah, especially that aerial. That's a yeah. What are they called? I've forgotten the name, but there's a name for those aerials. And that's
Yeah.
going to always on top of a dome, all right?
Mm-hmm. So this is Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum.
I wonder how that. So that was one of the buildings that was supposedly powered by the
Edison.
steam. Yeah,
Yep.
yes. I wonder how that ties in.
And one tower held water and the other held the hot water. And people
Right,
think that by altering the water pressure,
change, yeah.
that is all the energy you would need right there.
So just create, okay, water pressure and steam pressure.
Yep.
I wonder what. Oh, okay.
So this is Ripley's Believe It or Not. They actually put the museum in one of Flagler's friend's castles that was also built. Same style, same time, 1887.
Think they're trying to tell us something?
Right, exactly. It's unbelievable. You can't believe it.
Can't believe it.
This is Memorial Presbyterian Flagler built. Also 1887, 88.
Whoa.
That's the inside of the Ponce de Leon Hotel.
Wow, man, they did all the woodwork.
You can see how little it's changed, how brand new it still looks.
Yeah.
Compared to 120 years ago. Here's just downtown St. Augustine in the late 1800s, and you can see that brickwork, how ancient that old brick looks. And it's like Roman brick. It's not like American brick. It's the thinner type.
Yeah, those, yeah.
That's Ripley's Believe It or Not.
I don't.
That's the inside of Castillo de San Marco, more cannonballs. Okay, here we go. This is very interesting. Talking about steam technology. I'm going to read this out loud if you don't mind.
Yeah.
This is not a downspout. Mr. Flagler's friend was Thomas Edison. The Edison Electric Company powered the building with steam heat and 4,000 electric lights, making the hotel one of the nation's first electrified buildings. This dragon had a red light bulb in it, making it appear as if it were breathing fire. There were several around the courtyard. Must have been an exciting sight for guests. But Mr. Flagler had to hire additional staff to turn on and off the light switches in the rooms because the guests were afraid of electricity and thought they might get shocked. So this dragon would blow steam out of its mouth and had a red light when the electricity was turned on or the steam energy was going, you know?
Wow.
It's like one of these old sci-fi movies or something.
Yeah. I mean, is that what all these gargoyles are? Because there are gargoyles.
Exactly.
You see pipes coming out their mouth.
Exactly. You're right. It's a pressure release system.
Yeah, and I saw some video ages ago, and they were wondering, were gargoyles like the wastewater, and it was, that they looked ugly because it was telling you fat.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
same for hot water, right? Like dangerous, right?
Exactly. Dragon, bad. Good point.
Yeah.
And then the angels, maybe the drinking out of the little baby angels, the pee, maybe that was the good stuff.
Yeah, right.
Who
Well, some
knows?
people eat the urine therapy, so who knows?
But yeah, okay, let me finish up on St. Augustine. Probably not going to get through all this stuff, but that's okay. Yeah, that was pretty much it. Here's another building, also built by Flagler in the same style, in the same year, 1888-87. This is Grace United Methodist Church, also walking distance from all these others. You see how big the city gates were. And this is built out of coquina blocks for no reason whatsoever.
So basically, the blocks that were probably
same as the fort.
Forts and old walls and megalithic stuff that they've cut up and made smaller.
Yeah. So that's St. Augustine. It's a star city, as you can see.
When's that map from? Yeah, right. You got the wall too.
1800s, 1700s, if I had to guess.
And that's because I was going to say when we looked at that star fort, it's exactly what we're seeing in the Ukraine on the star wall. That's exactly like that star wall there.
Yeah. Yep. It was international for sure.
It was. Well, I mean, the Ukraine's not very far from the places we were talking about where the natives may have come from.
Right. Cyprus too.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. And this is the thing, they give us this story, oh, they did it because they poured it with this new concrete, but who did all the woodwork and who did all the artwork, man?
Exactly. And this was all horse and buggy. This was horse and buggy, 1887. Edison had just started, putting electricity into buildings, and this was one of the first to get electricity. On the other side of Florida, I didn't go into the first hotel that had electricity from the beginning is. Can you still see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at this guy real quick. The Tampa Bay Hotel.
Oh, God.
This one was built at the exact same time, pretty much 1887, across on the other coast of Florida. And this was actually the military headquarters during the Spanish-American War. And Teddy Roosevelt was training with his Rough Riders in the fields around this place. So that looks like Russia to me, like that Ottoman architecture. They say that it's Moorish revival, but
everything's a revival, man.
Yeah.
That's very Russian. I mean, Moorish as well, but it's got that more sort of Russian Moorish tinge to it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So, there you go. Think of that, guys. So we've got 493 people watching at the moment. So thanks, everyone. Don't forget to go and subscribe to Old World Florida. Lots of really good content there. Share it around, all that kind of stuff. If we've got any questions, who we got here? Blazing Star. I'm not going to say hello to everyone. Actually, I'm not going to say hello to anyone because I'll be here all night. I did see Dustin. How you doing? I haven't seen you in a while. Teddy Roosevelt was sworn in as a president in Buffalo. Well, there you go. Blah, blah, blah. I've seen that, Carlos. I've seen you say that before. Glenn Curtis Star Forts. What does that mean? Is that a channel?
Oh, okay. Glenn. Well, this is a good story. It's a very good story. So Glenn Curtis was the guy that invented the telephone. Alexander Graham Bell.
Yep.
Was a inventor.
Oh, is this the guy you told me to remind you of that I didn't?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Don't forget about Glenn Curtis. Yeah.
So Glenn Curtis was a inventor of like motorcycles, and his whole thing, why he became so famous, he's considered one of the most influential men in American history. No one knows his name. He is, if you need a poster child of reset inheritor, henchman that's just getting us off the steam energy onto the dirty combustive energy, he is your guy. He was the first man to put a gas engine on a dirigible on a airship. Yeah. So he switched they used to be clean, free tech, it was slow, but it was free and it was safe. He got them onto combustive gas. He is one of the men that got gas engines onto Zeppelins. So it wasn't until they had gas engines that they became so lousy. So no point. You could put a gas engine on a plane and get somewhere, instantly. But at what cost? At an environmental cost. So he also is one of the first people to put planes. I should have said that too. He was a direct competitor to the Wright brothers as far as making planes. And he put a V8 engine in a plane. And that was his kind of claim to fame, was he would take a V8 engine, and he's one of the first inventors of motorcycles too. So he was taking these old electric bikes, steam bikes, and slapping gas engines on them and getting a paycheck. And he was getting, put
Wow.
on a pedestal. That was until he conspired with the Smithsonian to discredit the Wright brothers as the true inventors of the plane. He got caught, and the Smithsonian got in trouble, and he got disgraced, and he moved down to Florida. So when he got to Florida, he built a Moorish city. This is ridiculous. Like they can't get their story straight with the Florida stuff because it was so recent. It's like Australia, they have this little timeline to put all this
Fit all that
lying
history
into.
into it. Yeah.
So here, I'm going to just share my screen one more time.
Yep.
And we're going to take a look at Opa-locka, Florida.
So this is the city that, what was his name again?
Glenn Curtis built an entire city, Moorish revival city.
Of course. Oh, wow, man. That looks...
And this is in Miami. This is just outside of Miami in Opa-locka, Florida.
That
and
one
they
there,
actually...
gosh.
Sorry.
We've got the Taj Mahal, even it's even got the 4 pillar things around the outside.
Yeah.
That one
and
there, yeah.
It's so Arabic looking that they filmed all these movies that supposedly took place in like Arabia. They filmed them here.
Oh, wow.
And
Like
he
Lawrence
built
of Arabia and all that kind of stuff.
He built it for no reason. And he built, I think, 80 buildings, and I think only like 20 of them survive because they all got wiped out by a hurricane, like the same year that he finished it.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a bit of bad luck.
But people, I think, well, maybe he wasn't erecting this stuff. Maybe he was knocking it down, and this is all that we have left.
Oh, I see. Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. That would make sense, wouldn't it?
But so why he relates to star forts is he was the first person ever to drop a bomb out of an airplane.
Wow. And
So
then
he
decided to drop it on a star fort.
because it was World War I, and the government hired him to work on military airships and to prove that they could be used in the military. And he took a plane up in front of all these generals and started dropping artillery bombs out of an airplane. And he showed people no one had thought of this yet. No one. And he was the first person to drop these bombs out of airplanes. The moment he did that, and the moment that the government accepted his contract and started putting bombs on the planes, the moment that happened, every star fort on the planet became obsolete and deactivated. Because with aerial combat, every fort on the planet became obsolete.
Yeah, okay. I see what you mean.
You can drop bombs. So if it wasn't for Glenn Curtis, we would still be using, and someone else could have came across and invented the same thing.
Yeah,
but basically, if you go look at his Wikipedia, it says he pioneered aerial combat, thus making all static forts on the planet obsolete.
Wow.
So not only was he the guy that got us off of airships, he also invented the airboat in Florida, the airboat that skips across the water.
Oh, okay. Like the hydro, what are they called?
No, it's just an airboat.
What's an air? Oh, with the big fan on the back of it, you mean?
Yeah. Airboat.
Oh, that thing. Okay.
He invented that too.
Wow. Okay.
And all of his research was funded by Alexander Graham Bell, the fake inventor of the telephone.
Yeah, because
But yeah.
Wow, man. That's pretty interesting. Wow, you brought lots of new stuff to the table there.
let's see. The only real other thing I had planned was talking about elephants, how Florida has some of the most elephant bones, mammoth and mastodon bones from like the Ice Age.
Yeah, right.
But when in the 20s, you had the Ringling Brothers start their circus down here. Now in Sarasota, which is where they headquartered their circus, you still have a law today that says you're not allowed to park your elephants in parking places because there were so many elephants back then. Now, if I can,
I mean, wow, okay. And that's another interesting part, is circuses, right?
exactly, the circuses were like the just like
Highly morbid.
like they were like concentration camps for for the
For the animals,
elephants.
you shouldn't be
Yeah.
there. Yeah, yeah. That's why
But,
they always have exotic, what we're told are exotic animals.
mhm. And so I just think it's not a coincidence that we have. Um, let me show you a couple pictures of elephants in Florida. So Miami Beach was actually in part built by elephants. Miami Beach. These are elephants rolling out the polo fields of the country clubs back in the 20s. There's an elephant helping building a hotel in Miami Beach. This is the Venetian Causeway in Miami. These are elephants getting moved from one place to another.
Venetian Causeway.
Exactly, Phoenician. This is Miami.
And so is the story that they're just all offspring from the circus people?
That's what we're told.
That's what they, yeah, well, okay.
What's funny is that all the most of the elephants in Florida are Asian elephants, not African elephants. And Africa's right next to Florida. So why are they Asian ones? Who knows?
Yeah,
But
well, yeah, they used to take elephants around on, who was it, the Chinese or something? Used to put them on boats and float around and stuff. But
well, the Phoenicians took. This is because there's all these elephant bones in Europe. There's tons and tons of elephant bones in
yeah,
France, like Denmark, and they're not mastodon. And why that's important is the Phoenicians took African elephants and trained them to be war machines, and they put them on ships and they took them to uh, Rome and to Gaul when they were fighting the Romans. So
yeah,
and then the Romans adopted war elephants after that. So these elephants in Florida, they might be Carthaginian war elephants because the
yeah, right.
Carthaginians are the Phoenicians and the Phoenicians are the Moors. So
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, if they're running away to set up another defense, they would have their war machines, wouldn't they?
exactly.
Wow. Geez, so there you go, guys. Do you think Florida was anything like that? I mean, wow. I'm going to have to go and do a trip, I think, to Florida.
Yeah, come on over.
Yeah, I didn't realize there was so much cool stuff there. And the whole Star Force, man, that just, God.
Yeah, I don't even think I showed any pictures of Fort Jefferson or anything. But
Yeah. That's one off the coast. Yeah, no. I've got a video on Fort Jefferson. That was actually my
you
first
do.
video ever. It was the first one
Was
I ever
it?
did. Yeah.
That's funny. It's one of my favorite ones by yours.
Oh, there you go. All right, we'll be going 2 hours almost exactly, man. So thank you so much for joining us. That was really cool. And again, guys, link in description. Go down and yes, go across and subscribe, share, give him a like, a comment. Getting to 10K. He's going to get to 10K. But he's got a lot of really good content there. So definitely support your local creator. Who we've got here? So hello to everyone in chat. I won't go through them because holy dooly, there's a lot of comments. But thank you all for being here. All 500 of you. I think we've had 500 for an hour or so. So yeah, thank you all. And thank you, Dr. Longo.
Thanks.
for
Thanks,
joining us.
Campbell.
It was really nice to meet you and have a chat, and maybe we can do it again in the future.
For sure. I'd love to. That'd be awesome.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining me. Have an amazing day, night, evening, morning, wherever you are. And we'll talk to you all on the next upload. And I'm just trying to find a very cool outro. God, I need to make something new. Let's do this. All right. Stay awesome, guys. Catch you next time.
Being autodidactic, the self-educated on what's actually out there.
We're just trying to rediscover, research, remember. With what's gone on in the last few years, it's like, can we really trust the information we've been given about anything? You know, if they're not going to tell us what's good for us, for our mental and physical well-being, then why would they tell us the truth about where we came from? You know, because that's the biggest thing, is people don't want to believe they've been lied to. You know, obviously no one wants to be lied to. And then the next bit after that is, they would never do that to us. You know, the government loves us, but does it really? Because we trust the science. Like literally, they put on a front for us on their Tell Live Vision, where they have their cast and they do a broadcast from Hollywood with their little holly wands. But it's just a front, right? Just like they put on the buildings, it's just a front.
We used their foundations and then covered it with a facade. Catastrophism used to be taught in higher education as the geology. It wasn't the crustal displacement theory, it was catastrophism, and that there was many resets. So we're just starting to put the pictures back together and the maps and trying to add everything up, because so much has been deleted.
Tartaria. Where did it come from? What's the real story?
It seems like, and there's a lot of, you know, debate about the word Tartaria, and of course, you know, we use it because, you know, it's a topic, that's the word people know, but it's the old world. But the more we look into this, I mean, Tartaria, basically in the old encyclopedia says it was basically the whole northern hemisphere at one point. So it seems that it was not a country as we think of them, but more of a civilization, I guess, where there was independent countries, but they were all sharing the same information and technology and working together. Yeah, and then basically over time, during catastrophes, it got broken apart, and those people who like to take advantage, shall we say, sort of jumped in and stole it all.
It's the same civilization, that same Slavic civilization and technology and whatnot, or group that later was Tartaria, and then I guess broke apart. I would have been right before the World Wars, right? That would have been the last remnants being wiped out.
You know, the censorship that we see now, that's a book burning. That's just a book burning, but done on the internet.
Burn it.
Time. You know, and the calendars and the dates, we know they're always flipping calendars around, right? You know, from Julian to Gregorian. You know, we talked about the Slavic calendar being, you know, in the year 7000. We know that Judaism is in the year 5000 somewhere. You know, all these different dates, and we're told we're in the year 2022. But are we? And what does that even mean? Right? How can we be in the year 2022 if someone else is in the year 5000 and something, and someone else is in the year 7000, right?
Right, the grand cycle, and why so many ancient civilizations paid so much attention to it, and building measuring the megalithic structures that have lasted throughout all of time. That's the grand celestial calendar to this day. And it's why they're trying to have this great reset yet again right now, because everybody's waking up, so they want to try to erase it all over again.
Don't ever try this at home.